Hey everybody, this is Shit Talk Reviews. Thank you so much for joining us. Today we're doing things a little differently because once again we have people all over the country, as Dave can't see his way to stick around his place of employment. So today I'm in South Florida. Derek is in we'd call you South Florida? Yeah.
I guess.
Kinda. So
kinda,
yeah, it's still
sorta.
South
I would
Florida.
say he's kind of South
You know
Florida.
My favorite part of this is I can make faces at Dave and he can't see it because he's too stupid. He
can
doesn't
see
know
it.
how to use technology.
Yeah, and Dave is joining us remotely from the glorious Garden State of New Jersey. So we are via Zoom today. So if this goes horribly astray, it's not our fault. It's Mr. Zoom's fault.
So, John, you ever go somewhere and you just feel like there's just an awkward feeling about it? Something's off. It's kind of how I feel going into today's podcast because I'm really hoping you guys like this. But I'm it's so hard to tell where you guys are going to be, where I'm going to be. So we'll see.
Why don't you tell us who we're going to discuss today then? And then the lambasting of each other can start.
So today we're talking about a band called OneFromTheNorth, pretty much an industrial band from Finland. This is their third album, and it's a little bit of mix between electric metal and rock, hard metal. So I can't wait to see where we're going to go with this because it's almost I don't know. I'm really curious to see how this winds up today.
Dave, do you miss your asshole seat? Because I mean, you seem kind of nice. You're not sitting farting in your fart chair that brings out the asshole. So we'll see what happens.
Well, Dave's nervous to hear if we're going to take him apart for his selection this week.
Exactly.
What my initial take was, and I'll just be honest with you, last week we got done with the podcast. I was driving north. I turned it on. I felt like I was supposed to turn around and drive to Miami and go clubbing. And so I didn't. I kept north, stayed north, and drove home. And I listened to it again on Monday and Wednesday going down. I think for me, I love the metal components of One from the North. They're very In Flames like. I questioned the techno dance party. When I was in college up near the Canadian border in Vermont, we used to go to Sherbrooke, Canada to go after chicks, right? To go after girls. And we'd go to these dance clubs that had a lot of the techno beats that One from the North chooses. And it occurred to me, it felt like a metalhead walked into one of those clubs, up in Montreal or Sherbrooke, and found a person that does, the DJs and said, hey, let's take your world and mix it with In Flames. And
I don't know if
all right, let's do it. And for me, it's a little strange. I like the metal components of it, but the techno house party goes too far to the techno house party for me. But that's not to say it's bad. It's just a matter of taste.
I totally can understand where you're going with that. And I kind of agree with you on that. But I just thought overall, you're right. I mean, the metal parts to this album, the guitar riffs, his growl, and I'm not a fan of the death growl. He throws that in there. Beyond very good. But it's hard to disagree that the other stuff mixed in worked at times and sometimes it didn't. But I'm not saying I didn't like it either. So, John, what do you think? I mean,
it was one of those records that the first time I listened to it, I didn't dislike it, but it took a few passes to start to get into it for me. I felt like I understood the record. McKeenan, is that his name?
Yes, sir.
He's a one-man show and classy.
That's nice, real nice.
Very professional.
Well, we're nothing if not professional. I felt like I understood how the record came together for him. I felt like I was able to get into his head a little bit when listening to it. The blending of the electronic and the traditional instruments, especially for heavy, heavy music. I got it. It did take me a while. I liked it. It was a slow burn for me. I think the last King Gizzard for you, Dave, was a slow burn.
Yeah.
This one took me a bit. I was listening to it right up until before we connected here for this, and I like it. There's tracks I like more than others, certainly, but that holds true with every record.
John, to your
but
point,
I liked it.
To your point, John, a lot of this album, you could just tell first of all, the passion in the guy's voice is incredible, but he's talking about power, right? How us is, how government rules everything, and it's a dictatorship. If you listen to the lyrics on some of these songs, clearly it's coming from the gut, right? It's almost like a person who's just had it about the establishment. At least that's what I got out of him.
He had something to say on this record for sure.
Yeah.
Passion is there's no substitute for passion. And it's funny because when you don't like something as much as you would hope, you have to give credit to passion and giving your all, your soul. And look, he puts his soul into this band. And when I think of industrial, I think of, for me right away, I go to Ministry and Uncle Al.
Yeah.
And everything from heroin use, the drug use, to fighting, and it's just the dark side of humanity. But I also, when I think of metal and industrial, I think of Fear Factory. One from the North does not fit those molds, and
Nope.
that's not necessarily a bad thing. The industrial space has been dominated by a lot of bands that sound like Ministry and Fear Factory. The fact of the matter is that I respect that he took a crack at breaking that mold. I just choose to not enjoy the techno part of it, but it certainly is a worthwhile endeavor to try to expand the limits of what industrial is.
It had a very Euro feel to me, big, epic. And I think the incorporation of all those super heavy sawtooth synth sounds played a big part in that. And then just the grandiose, like I said, like the Viking battle vibe that a lot of the songs on this record brought.
Yeah, John, I echo what you just said. That's a very good point. You're right. And for me, after I went through that process, I'm like, what, let me go online and see what I could find this guy. And I did. I found some YouTube videos of this guy. I don't know, McKeenan. I don't know if you guys did.
I couldn't find anything.
When you physically, they're on there. If you YouTube it, it comes up. And when you see this guy's chops on the guitar, playing on the YouTube video, for me, seeing that made this a little bit better for me. I would say, if that makes sense.
You saw it as legit,
yeah,
as opposed to a guy sitting behind a computer, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Go ahead, Derek. I'm sorry.
To back John's point, there is a band called Blood Command, and they are very Euro in that they have a girl that screams, and she's awesome. I mean, she's live. She's absolutely nuts. But they have 1 second, they'll have a very dancey sound, and then the next it's a pure screamo, rip your head off song. What's interesting about One from the North is that they are not afraid to be a dance party 1 second and then rip your head off the next in the same song.
True. Yeah.
And that's, again, that is respectable in that they are breaking a mold and giving, putting out what's genuine and authentic. And I do appreciate that fact. Again, not up my alley, but for others, I'm sure it is. And it might be even refreshing. There could be girls and guys out there that love going to the club that want a harder side to it. And this is it.
I got to be honest with you too. It's hard when my time comes and it's my album. I got to throw you guys a curveball because the metal, John with producing things. So you guys are very knowledgeable in this stuff. So I got to throw you.
So that's great.
I got to throw you guys curveballs because if I keep throwing you the same stuff, it gets boring. So I try to trip you up. So I hoped. I wasn't sure where this was going to go today, but surprisingly, Derek is not a fan of it, which is cool.
He's not totally filled with hate for it.
Yeah.
No, I mean, honestly, it's not offensive, like Avenged Sevenfold. and those plastic daisies. But
Yeah.
there's nothing offensive about it. Art is art,
Mhm.
right? And there is a attempt at stretching the limits of metal industrial, and that's to be commended. I really appreciate the metal pieces that are there. I really do. I would love to hear a full metal record without the electronic parts. And
Right.
I'd be curious to see what that would be, because for me right now, my album of the year is Unearthed, and we're in June. I like knuckle dragging, kick ass metal, but I do believe that, he's got talent. And if he stayed in a more narrow space, he might be more universally accepted. He might be hugely universally accepted, and I just don't realize it. But I would love to hear a full-fledged just metal album, remove the electronic pieces, or make the electronic pieces a little bit more standard to metal.
I got to
I
give
mean,
the,
go ahead.
I'll give the guy props for a lot on this record. I think from a tonal viewpoint, he picked great tones. Derek, you kept mentioning the disco, walking into the club. I totally get where you're picking that up from. There was only really one song, Silence in Me, the second to last track, that felt like at the beginning I was like, oh, that's in a club. But the others I thought were, you got moves, Derek. See, our listeners can't see this, which is maybe for the best. But yeah, I thought the tones were great. I thought he did a great job of blending the two styles together. And everything is subjective. I'm not surprised to hear that aspect of the record is not what jumps out for you, Derek. But I think he did a great job of squashing the two together. Either of you guys listened to his earlier stuff?
I did, John. Yeah.
The last record that he did,
through the gray stone to Ravage.
Yeah.
I went back and listened to that one in full, and come on, Derek. I mean, really. But anyway, I did.
I inherited some Coors Light, so when in Rome.
But yes, I did go back and listen to that album, and I mean, I like this one better, but it stuck to the script, very similar.
A little more. The last album seemed to be a bit more atmospheric. I mean, the album opens with this great, creepy, like outer space track, which is awesome.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it.
Do you guys like the fact that does it sway you in any way to you both? If it's like a Wolfgang Van Halen or like a McKeenan or Sermon, where one guy's really doing this all on his own, where John, anybody can appreciate that, or there's five guys on stage and they're doing this themselves. Does it matter? Because I'm a little biased to the guys who do this by themselves.
You give them deference because they're able to do it by themselves, or
I do. I give a little bit more street cred to the guys who are doing this themselves. I think that's amazing.
I think it's great too. Yeah. I understand it, and that's kind of what I was saying earlier, where I felt like I was able to get into his head as this album came together, because I understand what it's like to be the person to sit down and try and do it all yourself. So they get a solid set of knuckles from me.
I agree.
Yeah.
My feeling is I love Typo Negative, and Peter Steele wrote a majority of the music. Like, let's be honest. I love Megadeth. Dave Mustaine writes a majority of the music. He can play leads with anybody. So I have mad respect for artists that have their vision, and they surround themselves with artists with a similar vision that are also allowed to take a step into the shadows and let their vision become real and support them. I'm just happy when human beings get along, to be honest with you.
Yeah. This is the last time we record a session with Derek drunk.
I mean, come on, Derek.
That's the thing. It's Coors Light. It's like beer. Coors Light is like it's beer flavored water with bubbles. Whatever, man.
Sorry, that's what you got stuck with.
But Coors, if you want to be a sponsor of Shit Talk Reviews, we will go to the Rock and sign a contract.
Listen, one step at a time. We're waiting on country time right now. Then we'll move on.
I'll take any sponsorship dollars. Thank you again to Tip Top Tire, White River Junction, Vermont, for sponsoring last week's episode.
What was wrong with that guy that did that recording?
I don't know. I've heard some disturbing things about him.
Hey,
Why
John,
does
real
he
quick.
not like, why does he call us hoity-toity turds?
Yeah, yep.
Hey,
Not very
John, real quick, before we score this, can we just maybe go around the room? I'm just curious, just what your favorite song was on the track, on the
Yeah.
album?
I had two standouts. The second track, I think it's Menial.
Mhm.
Apologies to all artists for butchering the pronunciations of their work. But yeah, the second track, Menial and Blood Covered Pigeon, I thought was
Yeah.
awesome. Big
Yeah,
fan of that. Love how it started out with that like march, that triplet feel. He did some cool stuff with the time signatures in there, added a couple extra beats in the choruses.
he
to a
even had a
great
death
effect.
growl. He even
Yeah.
had a death growl in that song.
You know, you ask about a single person playing, doing everything. The one bummer is automatically the chances of them touring is
Yeah.
lessened.
Right.
Not a whole lot of single artists, I think, can really successfully tour as well. I've seen it.
Yeah.
Cloud Kicker. I got to see Cloud Kicker play years ago, and he's a one-man show. Managed to get the entire band intronaut. All the members served as his backing band, and they pulled it off incredibly. It was great. I'd love to see what these guys, One from the North, can do with a bunch
Yeah.
of
Bloody
rigged players.
Hammers. Bloody
Yeah.
Hammers, another band. It's a husband-wife duo. They're dark as shit. Dave, you might like them because they're very typo-ish.
Yeah.
And they have some synth, but they have some riffs. And
Yeah.
they don't tour.
Yeah.
It's just the two of them.
Yeah, they just don't
They
tour.
pump out album.
Yeah.
I love everything that Bloody Hammers
Yeah.
does. So they're certainly a band to check out. That's a duo
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
worthwhile.
Yeah.
Derek, what was your favorites, Derek? What'd you like?
Menial, Blood Club, Covered Pigeon. I love Church Burner, and it was funny because I actually had to go to the post office at lunch, and I had it on, and I was banging it. But the
Nice.
problem for me was I literally was being taken back to Sherbrooke and Montreal in between some good gore. And I want my gore. I want to headbang my fucking nuts off and not be raising the roof, yo.
It's funny you bring that song up, Derek, because there's a video for that song on YouTube for Church Burner. So you check it out.
Oh, I saw it. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. And I watched it actually Friday night when I got back here after doing our podcast last week. And I played it for my wife, and she's like, yeah, the metal's cool.
Yeah.
Metal's cool, but
Yeah.
what's up with the dance party? And
Right.
we thought about putting it on, like we've got like a big speaker in the backyard next to the pool. We thought about putting it on and having a little dance party, but it's too heavy to have a dance party too.
Derek,
And then
were you disappointed that while there were a lot of disco synths, that there were no boy band choruses?
listen, there is no place for boy band choruses in metal, as far as I'm concerned. Boy bands are boy bands. Be a boy band, do your boy band thing, make girls go swoon and all this other stuff. But my God, man, no, thank God there was not.
Sorry.
Otherwise, I'd be cursing
Dave-
Dave for bringing this up. I have mad respect for the band. I have mad respect for what they're trying to do. It's not my cup of tea. Half of it is not my cup of tea, but I get it. And the talent is there. And I'm not going to begrudge anybody who has talent for being ambitious. It's
Nice.
a worthwhile
Well said.
cause.
Derek, very well said, my man. Very well said.
Dave, what were your standout tracks?
So I think we all agree, Blood Covered Pigeon. Awesome song.
Great song.
Awesome. And then the other one for me was Regime Salvation and the Pyre, the name of the album.
The
I thought that
track.
was a fabulous song. Church Burner, there was good ones. It was good stuff.
Yeah,
I'm
actually,
glad you guys liked it, because like I said, you're a tough crowd. But I thought this was a good one because it's different,
Yeah. Well, let's score this bitch. Let's start with you, Derek.
Yeah, I gave them an 8 for talent. And I gave them a 6 for having, something that isn't my cup of tea with too much, like pat away. Baby, don't hurt me. But we'll go right in between the 8 and the 6, and we'll go at a 7.
There you
Nice.
go. All right.
Nice. Well, I'm giving him a solid 8. I thought the production quality was great. Performance also great. Gave his technical proficiency with the instruments a solid 8. Yeah, I think it's a great record. I enjoyed it and I get it. It clicked with me.
Yeah.
So I felt like I understand it. Where are you, Dave?
That's great. So, you know me, guys, I love the lyrics. And if you listen to this album as much as I did, I mean, I went as so far as to get the lyrics while I was listening to the song. And this guy is deep, he's passionate. It sounds like he's had it, or if not him, he's talking for all of us. His lyrics in A Slave to Self Deception is unbelievable. I'm not going to get into it. Listen to it. With that being said, I loved it. I thought, like Derek said in the beginning of this podcast, with the whole mix of electronics and the metal, he loved the metal, not the electronics. I kind of felt the same. I liked it a little bit more than Derek, but man, I can't wait to see what's ahead for this. And I'm going with an 8.5.
Solid scores all the way around.
Yeah.
I don't know if I like the dynamic of not being in the same room though. It feels more difficult to beat up on Dave when we're not in the same
Well,
room.
you know what though, Dave, he's his asshole chair, and maybe it's when he sits down and the smell of his farts come out of it, he becomes an asshole. He doesn't.
It's hard to pick on Derek when he's not physically there, because you want to choke him. You know what I mean?
Do.
Well, that's all right. I want to take you and hang you by your underpants and then beat you with the beating stick. So it's all good.
Listen, I'm happy you guys liked it. I am, because it's good shit. And this guy's talented, like Derek said. It's nice when you see this kind of talent, and maybe not for this podcast, like some other bands. We may never have found this guy. So
you can never begrudge, and anybody who does, that takes one person's talent and their passion and their obvious commitment and tear them down, I wouldn't be able to live with myself.
Yeah.
Sevenfold made a ton of money. They took a huge chance. For me, it was a fail. It was a fail for all of us. But for a guy that's a one-man show, for me to come in here and shred it is just, it's not okay. And frankly, there is a massive talent there and passion. And so, there was no chance I was going to come in here and tear it apart the way we did Avenged Sevenfold, because it's not worthy of it.
Yeah.
Well,
I agree.
The fact is, it's a good record.
Yeah.
By pretty much any measure, it's a good record. It's well done. It's well put together. I'm not a lyrical guy, but I appreciate that he's got solid enough content that, Dave, you took note of it, and I'm sure others have and will. But it's a good record. It doesn't deserve to be shredded.
Can I ask you, do you not like lyrics because you never learned to read? Be honest.
Yep. That's it. I was, as a young child, that was, maybe it was undiagnosed dyslexia. I don't know.
That's crazy.
I always knew growing up, there was a young boy, in the family home. And I always thought how sad my life is going to be that I'll never get to understand good metal lyrics, because I can't now and will never be able to read.
Huh.
Dave, I think we should fire him.
John,
because how is he holding down a job when he's basically a caveman with jawline?
John,
stop talking over me.
What was so interesting about that is I believed you.
Well, I'm a hell of a con man, I guess. I fooled you two fuckers for long enough.
I miss you guys.
No, you don't. Are you kidding me? You just saw us on Wednesday. Like, it's only been like 36 hours.
That's a long time.
Should I sing Rick Astley's "Together Forever and Ever to Pass"? Together forever with
John.
Dave.
John, end this podcast. It's going in a bad direction.
That's true. It is spiraling.
Take us out.
Well, we appreciate you guys coming and hanging out with us and listening to us shred each other. And happily this time, not an album or an artist. So
John, real quick, who's up next week?
don't worry about, I'm up next week. Don't worry
Okay.
about who's up next week. It will not be Barry Manilow, though. I can tell you that. All right. Thanks again, everybody. We'll see you next week.